What up, everybody? Scuffy here, and I've got a different overlay going on here. I had some wonderful fun times with my phone the last couple of days. Accidentally cleared a lot of things off my phone that I probably should not have, and now I've got to readjust settings and different apps that have updated, etc., etc., etc. Long story short, that's not what I'm here to talk about. I'm here to talk about Azkaellon, right? He's in the shop today. He was in the shop yesterday. If you placed top 10 in the last event, then you got him in your crate, which is what we did here. So some people got him, a couple days in advance. I think actually like 2 days in advance, and not even that, like 24 hours in advance. And I've been playing with him. I've been having fun. But I'll tell you what I'm going to be doing here. I'm going to be doing a Blood Angels card by card coming up. That'll be my next video that I did because I was waiting for the 4th Warlord. I think the Blood Angels have received several patches where they're at right now. They're ready to do a feature. They're ready to do, a faction. They don't think that there's stuff lingering out there that needs to be addressed. Feeling pretty good with Azkaellon. Feeling pretty good. I think the first loss was just kind of getting the footing on there. There's been a couple tight games. Overall, that's about a 73% win rate with what we've got here. This is just in practice, but that's okay, because that's the whole point of trying stuff out and having fun and trying it differently. Here's the thing with Azkaellon. So he's got this, he's unstoppable, which is nice. That's an added bonus here, really, for pinch late game. He's got the ability to draw a card, and if it's a tactic, gain frontline until your next turn. Now, the one thing that I really have to say, and I've said it before about the Blood Angels, is that each Warlord is so dynamic and diverse in how they act and how they interact with their faction. So you've got Azkaellon, you've got Meros, who's kind of got a Requiem, prolonging the game option, really. Raldoran, who is a little bit of a pinch damage, but also buffing. And then you've got Sanguinius, who really feeds into more of a reckoning state, or furthering the damage that a lot of troops on board can do. And then within the pool of the Blood Angels cards themselves, there's so much that can do. While I am very sad that we did not get Nasir Ahmed, who was the Flesh Tear, which was the alternative warlord in the event where we got Azkaellon, because I liked Ahmed as a character much better. When I saw this ability, and it looked inevitable that we were going to be getting Azkaellon, I started home brewing, getting up some ideas as far as what to go with this deck. And really, honestly, I think his ability helps fuel the concept of how I wanted to play the Blood Angels on release. The Blood Angels on release with their landing effect, and with the some of the powerful cards that they've got, some of the key effects, and then just comboing that. So let's take a look at the deck list here. I'm going to go over some key cards. Now, as you can see, it's not a lot of pure tactics. It is more. The majority is in the tactics side. I think at one point I had it 15 and 15, and I felt like to get a little bit more of his ability, plus fine-tune it, I think 17 to 13. You can probably make an argument for 18, 12, but that's really, really pushing the threshold. Like, Jubok might not be necessary. However, if you are able to protect Jubok with Azkaellon, giving him frontline, that's great. The frontline, though, is not for troops that stand back. I think that's kind of the hitch that I think some people looked at. They're like, oh, okay, well, it's like a conditional. Let's just take a look into the collection. It's like a conditional. Maybe you'll get frontline with, Duquesne. Well, how is that any different from Duquesne, who's got a guaranteed, and he's got heal, and he's got the Iron Warriors pool, who's got relentless. It works differently because of the faction pool specifically. I'm not looking to include cards such as Mortar Carrier, or the Sagittari Squad, any of those troops that like to sit back behind a front line. Well, that's nice. It's nice having a protected Duke. That's not the point of Nasir Ahmed, or at least in my mind, that's not the point of the Nasir Ahmed. The point of Nasir Ahmed is doubling down what you can to secure your landing effect. And he does this in several different ways. So first off, Just getting frontline protects your drop pods from a direct attack from a warlord or from flanking. It makes it a little extra obstacle. I've added a couple extra things in here to further that. Those couple extra things being escape vent. If you have a stealth drop pod Astartes and you've got frontline Azkaellon, it's very hard for your opponent to break that stealth, damage the drop pod to break the landing. Now, the landing effects that I've got in here are not massively huge, but they are important. They are important. So let's go through the card by card and really highlight here what we've got. So first off, as we mentioned, escape vent. It's a 0. And I've got drilling sight in here. It's a 0 too. We've got 2 zeros. So as a result, having 4 cards that are 0 cost here. Abandoned supplies, which normally works great in a tactic, or war room, which works great in a tactic, is not worth having the slot in here because I don't want to blow them and on the off chance pull an escape vent or a drilling sight, and then I've just wasted 2 energy and I've gained nothing. That's not okay. But what a drilling sight allows me to do in the timing is at 4 energy, 5 energy, 6 energy, whenever I'm playing even 7 energy, which is that's the icing on the cake. You use the 2 energy for Azkaellon's ability. You draw a card, which really quick before I go into any further, can I just say that I think the card drawing, which was a very big issue that the Blood Angels had, they could peter out so quickly. I think that's been really rectified by some of the card changes that they've done, but Azkaellon's ability specifically helps get around that. So you're getting cards for that. But then you play his thing, you draw a card, higher chance that it's a tactic, so you gain front line. Then you play drilling sight, and you're able to play a drop pod troop on curve. That comes in very handy with guys like the Elijah, Moritat, even Meditus right at 3, believe it or not. That has a lot of value. So that's a good option. And you've got Command Bridge. Why Command Bridge? Because you want Command Bridge to get the 1 or 2 tactics that you need specifically for your matchup. Spear of Telesto is a good target. A Host of Angels is always worth pulling, so you don't have to go fishing for it. If you have that on curve, fantastic. Depending on what your opponent's warlord is, you may want some direct damage with the Bane of Demons, or you might want the Judgment of Angels if they're very troop-based. Last Stand is kind of, not entirely, but that's kind of the pinch card here that ties it all together. So you've got Bane of Demons. We've got 2 of those. The fact that it stuns a demon as well, that's nice, especially given Runestorm is a thing. And people are playing with a little bit more demons, and word bearers have risen. The word is being spread because they've received that recent buff. So Bane of Demons is I don't want to say a no-brainer, because it just felt right. It felt right. Judgment of Angels. Now, this could be argued to be a 2-cost card, or not say 2-cost. As a 1 of instead of a 2 times. I could tweak this out and I could put in another tactic. I liked it previous to the change that they did to it, because you would give it to a friendly Astartes in your hand, or the next Astartes that you played would gain flank, so you could set up a turn ahead. So now you've got to play it. Drilling Sight makes it possible for, if you need to play a landing troop, play Drilling Sight, play last Judgment of Angels, get your landing effect off, and you can either then essentially use Elijah to stun the warlord and flank. You could use Moritat to just straight up destroy. Believe it or not, those are your main landing effects. Dawnbreaker gets Bloodthirst, but you really want to use that Bloodthirst on your opponent's warlord. Speaking of Bloodthirst, Judgment of Angels ties into Last Stand. If you are able to stick your landing with your 1 troop on your turn, you pop that Last Stand there, and now you have a beefy, nasty thing. If you have an Eli Janus popping off at 6/4 with Bloodthirst, you're doing 12 damage. And then your opponent on their turn has to respond and find a way to respond to that 6/4 with Sneak Attack. Furthermore, if you have managed to get a front line with Azkaellon's ability in that turn as well, they have to find a way to get over your front line or through your front line. Now, that's not impossible. That's, there's a lot of cards, there's a lot of tactics in the game, there's a lot of abilities that do help work around. But you make it difficult. You make it very difficult, and they focus a lot more effort on getting rid of this one guy that you then promptly follow it up with, some other guy, Mortot or a second Ally or a Meditis, and then you just make it really hurt. And if they try to go the massive troops, like just throw more bodies on the table than you've got, that's where not prophecy revealed. That's where Silent Death comes into hand, just as a one of. I don't think as a two of it's worthwhile, but I think as a one of it's definitely pulled its weight in the games that I've played. You just use that as a proper timing. It buys you a turn. It buys you a very important turn. At 10 energy, theoretically, depending on what the board looks like, you could play Host of Angels, Silent Death, your opponent's entire board, if they've got multiple troops that they would be relying upon to, stymie your Host of Angels, and you really pop off with a stronger advantage, higher chance of having some serious combo potential there at the end game. Prophecy Revealed is in there as a one of, is anti-stealth, not necessarily for the card drawing. You could do more anti-stealth. You could take out an argument is there for taking out one Judgment of Angels, 2 Prophecy Revealed. I don't think that's a bad idea. However, the whole point of this deck is to get those landing effects out and really drive home on your opponent's Warlord. You're going to have to take some hits to the face. You're going to take some hurts. The idea, though, is you take those, but you end up stronger than your opponent's Warlord, and that's really where the killing strike goes. Jubok, again, like I said, if you get him protected with the front line, that's fantastic. It's not necessary. Goldstone Hunters, because they're unstoppable, because they tie into the end game result, and they also combo very nicely with the Angel's Tears. That is why those guys are in there. Meditis Squad is in there just for, like I said, if you can stick these guys on curve at 3 and get their landing, they become just a thorn that your opponent has to continuously deal with. Elia Janus is the workhorse. He's not the only workhorse, but at 4 energy, even at 5, if you have to get him in a turn later, if you can manage to keep him out there, whether he gets his landing or not, the fact that he's a 5/2 sneak attack and you have the potential to pump him up or protect him goes further. And I cannot say enough for properly timed escape events on valued troops. You want to make sure you're using it when you need to use it. You will not run out of cards in your hand. If you play Azkaellon's ability a couple times in the start of the game, you may take some punches to the face. You won't run out of cards in your hand. You'll actually find yourself in a much better position when you play the troops that you want to play the troops, how you want to play the troops. Mortot is a legendary, but it's a very good legendary. If you don't get the landing effect, you still have a 6/5 body on the field that your opponent has to deal with. No complaints there. Angel's Tears is probably, and we're getting into the card by card here for the Blood Angels, but honestly, I think this is one of the best cards in the faction. This card is very versatile in so many ways. It's amazing, and it works perfectly. Spear of Telesto, having one of these is very worthwhile, especially if through the game you manage to drop the cost of this card by 2 or 3. It actually can become very handy in a pinch. Dawnbreaker Cohort is again another one of your workhorses. Now you'll note here, they are also unstoppable. So in conjunction with your Warlord and your Goldstone Hunters, you've got Dawnbreaker, you've got, not Mortot, you've got the Sanguinary Guard as well, who's unstoppable, all of which you can throw a last stand on and just pump out some crazy damage. Will it be enough to finish the game? Will it be enough to take you closer to finishing the game on the following turn? With Host Angels, most likely that's what I've encountered, that's what I've seen. If you can do that, you're in really good shape. Host of Angels has at this point become a very familiar tool for people who have played Blood Angels and for those who have faced them. You know what you have to do to counter it, but that's really where that front line from Azkaellon throws a stymie in there. Your opponent then has to rely on either massive widespread damage from cards such as Doombringer, defensive satellites, high rolling, and they can roll low. there's unstoppable troops like Goldstone's just throwing them out there just to break the landing instead of dealing damage, and they still become susceptible for you following it up with an Angel's Tears on your next turn. So yeah, it's just a great card, and the fact that it's a tactic just makes it tie in easier, really easy with Azkaellon's ability. Sanguinary Guard is a good, not just end game, but a very powerful game to help stymie a board, break a front line, break a problem troop. You can throw these guys out on 7, you can escape vent them, and then you know you've got yourself set up for a 7-6 to your opponent's face, or throwing in Last Stand, 16 damage to your opponent's last face. And then Crimson Spectre, this does work. This is just, it's a high-cost tactic card, but it does very well. And especially in this game, if your hard matchups, if you find yourself dealing, your opponent's putting down bodies and bodies and bodies because they feel like they've got to break your front line, or they've got to break your drop pods, rather, they are creating themselves some vulnerabilities for Crimson Spectre, which can actually turn the tables around pretty nice. When you wipe their board and you heal for 6 to 8, it's a good feeling. Those are the cards in the deck. Those are the ideas behind the deck. So how the deck works, let's take a look here at this Thaddeus Vale. This is just at the top here. This is just a recent game. We'll take a look at Thaddeus Vale, and we'll see how he rolls. And so right off the bat, we're staying here. Now I know he's going to have troops on board, so I'm going to keep that Judgment of Angels. I'm going to feel comfortable with that. And you will see in this game exactly, there's a danger of filling your hand up. I won't lie, you don't have to use your ability every turn, but I find that sometimes I need to use the ability every turn. I want to use the ability every turn, or more importantly, I don't have anything else to do. And if I put my hand all the way up to 10, it's a risk I'm willing to take. There was one of the games early on that I had, I forget the opponent I was playing. I don't remember the Warlord. And actually, now that they've changed the recording, I might actually be able to go back and find that game. Got to have that drill sight. But we went the distance. I had decked out, and I was down to taking 2 damage or 3 damage. But just having all the options in my hand and playing what I was able to play and comboing it up was really allowed me to lock the game down. So still worthwhile, not a negative thing. And as you can see here again, I'm going to take some damage here. I could throw down Janus on point, but I don't want to with 3 bodies down, and I'd rather have him protected with the front line. And the fact that I'm not getting front line with a handful of 10 cards, yeah, there's going to be some overrun on this turn. I'm going to have to throw something off. So be it. I've got the escape vent, so I was toying with escape vent and the Elias Janus, and I'm going to do that this turn here just to further bolster it. Whether or not he's got anti-stealth, I don't know. Time will tell. And we're going to keep that drilling sight for a later turn. Now, I could have done, something else. I could have thrown down the Descent of Angels with the drilling sight, flanked. I chose not to. This is where this is a perfect example of a game where Silent Death comes in a pinch. Very handy. Very handy. Yeah. And then, what? Oh, versatility. This is not, yeah. It was a novel strategy. It was something that I enjoyed, and whether or not he's able to deal with him immediately as a 6/4, I've got some pretty decent lethal down there, and I'm feeling okay about that. And he's putting up the board here, but see, as he's putting up the board, he's got everybody stunned. He's loading things up. I don't have an escape vent in hand, but I know I have to get rid of that Clade. That Clade is just the Clade or the Dreadnought, but really the Clade, because what I'm seeing in my mind's eye is I'm seeing an option to hit with that Crimson Spectre and wipe a board. I'm going to take some hits, but I'm going to do some hits too. And he's got his flanking going. He's feeling pretty good. can't fault him for that. That's a nice, tasty looking board. And yet, yep, I'll take that 5. I'll take it. And see, here I'm thinking like, okay, well, he got the bonus health on his dread. That sucks. But then he put an extra body there for 4. I feel really good about dropping that and wiping some blood off, swinging things. And then what that does, swings the life. And because I've got an unstoppable warlord, I've got 2 gold stones in hand, I've got lethal right there. There's no way, well, I can't say there's no way. It's very highly unlikely for Thale to bust out lethal with what he had on the board. And he tries, he does some damage. I won't deny that. He makes a nice tasty front line. But again, I've got the lethal. And I think it top decks some additional lethal tools here too. So just a good way to show how the Unstoppable kind of works as a very precise end game, barring frontline, just to wrap everything up there. And then also kind of highlights how Drilling Sight in conjunction with Azkaellon's ability or in conjunction with Last Stand, it works. That was a pretty good representation of the game. I've got another one here somewhere. Zardu Layak. Oh, okay. Did this game go long? I think so. I have to apologize. Yesterday was a busy day, so these games here were played earlier in the day, and I kind of forget how they went. I played over a dozen games so far, and then I had to do some dailies, and as you can see, there's playing around some other decks. Now, you've got a warlord, for instance, here, like with Zardu Layak, or any warlord who can deal random damage or targeted damage. The escape vents come in much handier, but they're no guarantee. Captured Mandragorax is a perfect example of a way where you basically you're probably not going to get your landing effect. You're not going to get your landing effect because he's going to pop that 2 damage on your drop pod. The bonus is that you still have a troop that he still has to play additional tactics or other cards to get rid of, but it's not something that you can rely upon. That's really where you have to kind of, figure out the better things of your cards. And I'm just going to throw down the what do I go with? Do I go with Host or do I go with this? Yeah, Spear. Spear works better. Now, why did I go with Spear in this match versus Host? Primarily because now that the Possessed Marine doesn't have Ward, and there's not a straight up guarantee that the Martyr is going to get Ward. I think it's a worthwhile card. I think it's a worthwhile card to have, and I'm just putting pressure on the board for him to do. In addition to that, as we get closer to the 7 energy mark, with it being a Wordbearer's Legion, I'm very aware of the Architect of Heresy card. I kind of want to bait it out, if it's possible, on a lesser troop, and then play stuff. Now, the fact that I picked up the Possessed Marine from him, that's nice. That's a nice bonus. I'll take it. There's nothing wrong with that. If I could get a Possessed Marine with Last Stand, that would be cool. Although I will say this, one thing that I found in this game, and you'll see this here, and I don't know if this is a bug or if this is intentional. Now, Spirit Telestos should be -1 when a friendly Astartes dies. And I don't think I got the credit on that. He was my guy. He got stolen. He got stolen and he died. So he's no longer friendly. See how that works? It's sad. But we give the old Sanguinary Guard escape vent, and just to help protect him from the Architect of Heresy at that point, and really hammer down on the options we've got. Yeah, he's going to gain some stuff. We've got Spear. We're going to keep Spear for just a pinch longer, I think. I feel good about that. And then we can drop a nice, tasty Bloodthirst buddy. And he's already used his one card, his to steal. So, break our landing, that's okay. And I think what I end up doing here, if I remember correctly, well, I don't remember correctly. I'll tell you straight up, I don't remember. Do I use my ability? Okay. Just to further, create another faction at this point. He's got to get rid of that card. I've got lethal between the Goldstone and Azkaellon, and that's just a matter of putting stuff out. And if you would have dropped like a higher front line, I think I played another Zardi where they played the Sor Talgron late game, but because I had Unstoppable, kind of again like the fail matchup, the lethal was already there on the board. And the power came from that early to, or not say early, but necessarily mid to late game with those unstoppable landings. When I say unstoppable landings, I mean troops with unstoppable and landing and last stand. So that's the deck. That's how it works. That's the idea. That's the concept. It could be fine-tuned. I think there's a couple cards in there, and depending on what you're facing, what your matchup are, what cards you have. But the key cards to this deck, absolutely, are Escape Vent, Drilling Sight, and Last Stand. I would also argue strongly for Host of Angels and Dawnbreaker Cohort. Everything else, you can kind of tweak what you've got based off of what type of landing you want to get. If you are looking more for like the Parada Veterans to deal their damage, if you're looking more for the good old the little ping-pings, these Amica squads for the 3 because you don't have Medidas, that's fine too. They get something out there. I found that the Hermia, I don't need it with Azkaellon, or rather I should say I don't want it with Azkaellon. It's nice having drop pods for 3 that are also stealth and guarded by a front line, but it feels more like overkill, and the way this deck is kind of built, it teeters where you need a little bit of counterpunch, too much defensive, you're turtling up more than you need to, and you're actually putting yourself at a disadvantage, where if you have just the right nudge of offensive cards, like even just the Bane of Demons there, or Silent Death, even though it's defensive, it can be used offensively. It's just a delicate balance. So I've had a lot of fun with this deck. Again, as I said, practice. Yeah, that's where you test things out, you figure it out, see how it works for you. If you are looking to get Azkaellon from the special offer, if you're looking to pay $10 to get that ugly card back, go for it. If you already have Azkaellon from the top 10 lodges from last event, congratulations, you guys fought well. Try it out. If you aren't, give yourself a couple weeks, see when he's in the shop. He should be in the shop probably in a week or two. It's when they normally drop up, follow up from release, and then pick him up and give him a whirl. I think it's fun. I normally don't hype brand new warlords when they drop. Usually I'm off doing my thing, but this is one where I'd really been keeping an eye on his ability and kind of already had a deck in mind for him, and I'm glad to see that it's worked out as I had anticipated or as I had envisioned it. And again, I like the fact that these warlords play differently. I also like the fact that this deck is this is the kind of deck that I wanted to play with Blood Angels on release, but none of the 3 warlords here did anything to really help guarantee the landing. Azkaellon helps it stick. Azkaellon helps draw cards, which help tie into the combo of a successful landing. And that's really important, comboing on your successful landing. So I hope that's a little some good information, some good ideas. There are so many warlords in the game now, guys. Azkaellon makes it an even 85, an odd 85, I should say. I don't have Jogtai in here, and I think next probably we're getting Samus, and then from the looks of it, we might be getting Hebo Khan, which is going to be sweet. It's honestly, I think, one of the cooler White Scars characters, despite his story. Very cool guy. Very interesting. Some depth there. But as we go into that, I mean, we're shooting up into almost 90 characters now, and there's so many different ways to play the game. You just have to figure out what works for you, figure out what you want to do, figure out what's fun. If there's a warlord that you want to play, how do you play them, and what cards do you need, and then just focus in on that. Don't worry yourself with what everybody else is playing. Don't worry. I just randomly clicked on the Canis deck. I don't know how I did. That's funny. But that's ironic because that's what everybody's playing, supposedly. Also, oh, geez, now that I think about it, and if you forgive my ramblings and you like what you've seen here, please go ahead, like, and subscribe. That's just a quick reminder. But as I was thinking about it, the card that's kind of come up that everybody was, initially, like 4 weeks ago, everybody's like, oh, frontline doesn't matter because everything's unstoppable. Arrow, what's the point of having frontline? And then we have Desperate Defense, and Desperate Defense goes in several decks, and now everybody's like, oh, it's massive, free, beefy frontlines. And don't get me wrong, this is a very powerful card. This is a very powerful card, especially in the right deck and the build and played at the right time. But, it's like, oh, it's so powerful, it's terrible, and it helps Canis decks, and they're just strong. Well, the deck I just showed you is a great way to get around that. The Azkaellon deck that I just showed you, you're going to take some hits. You're going to take some hurts, and they can do some damage on your drop pods if they're not stealthed and break your landing. But the fact that you've got the late game, end game options with all those unstoppable troops, that's really where you get past that. That's an option to go around. Is it going to work every time? I don't know. Is it perfect? I don't think so. I mean, like I said, I think it can be refined a little bit more, especially specifically for what matches you're looking to get out of it. But it's very effective, and it's fun, and it plays like you would imagine playing the Blood Angels drop pod force on the tabletop. Drop pods are coming down, popping open. Blood Angels are pouring forth with their red thirst and their strange golden curly locks, and they're just unleashing the fury of the Emperor. So that's it for me, guys. That's what I've got to say. Hope you found this useful. Again, if you did, please subscribe. You spread the word, spread the video out to anybody else that you might think is helpful, that is asking around, thinking about a Blood Angels deck, or thinking about trying out Azkaellon. I've had a lot of fun, a lot of success with this deck, and I'd like to see in a couple weeks when he hits the main shop, I'd like to see some people giving this deck a try too, and test it for themselves and try something out and something new. So that's it for me, guys. Until then, keep playing Legions. We will talk to you later. Bye.